You may wonder why yet another podcast about IT project management. Because I could not find anything about the real root cause why IT projects or non-IT projects fail, or finish with enormous amount of stress, loss of money, and sacrificed people. Most projects suffer from scope creep, and because of that, they suffer from delivery date creep, and again, because of that, they suffer from budget creep. Welcome to the HAVE podcast series. Are you struggling with scope creep, budget overruns and delivery delays in both waterfall and agile projects? Then this podcast series is for you. Discover how the hybrid agile framework, HAVE, can keep your waterfall, agile or hybrid projects on track and within budget. We share practical tips, success stories and in-depth insights to help you overcome every challenge. Stay tuned and transform your project management with HAVE. Visit the podcast page on Elite Agile for more podcasts, or subscribe now and don't miss any episode. Yes, I've seen and see online many so-called solutions tackling one of the many root causes. In 99.99% of the cases, these solutions involve introducing even more command and control processes, such as the SAFe and the PRINCEII model. Both models introduce many processes and roles so management can, between brackets, regain control of the project again. However, this overlooks a fundamental natural law. This natural law is very well explained with the following example. Imagine you are standing on the beach, trying to hold as much sand as possible in your hand. Your instinctive reaction is squeezing your hand, which causes most of the sand to slip out. This metaphor describes very well what happens to projects when management tries to, between brackets, control the project. Processes and tools make management to squeeze, resulting in losing control even more. Hello, my name is Danny Vermeeren. I'm the founder of the company Elite Agile, a company aimed at sharing decades of experience, insights and solutions with organizations to support them to become true Elite Agile. Over these decades, I've not only guided many IT projects in roles such as IT director and various other management positions, but I have also spent a lot of time with my feet on the ground in the teams facing the real problems teams encounter. Through these decades of experience, I have become better at perceiving the simplicity of the underlying blocking dynamics. And as a consequence, I started to discover simple solutions. Solutions that are easy to understand, and because of that, easy to use. Finding a solution is always very gratifying because, well, yes, we found it. But if the solution isn't used because it required too much extra work, is too complicated, or isn't practical, no matter how much we want to, it will not be used. Like a common New Year's resolution. Next year, yes, I will exercise for sure. A few weeks later, you find yourself back not exercising as much as you planned. And a few months later, with some shame, you look back at your powerful statement but realize you are not exercising at all, nor you will do. Now we come to a second natural law. When you use something, it will show results. Always. Logical, isn't it? When you do not use something, it will never show results. Always. And that's also logical. And when you partially use something, it will show partial results, always. And this, of course, is logical too. Like when an organization selects a product methodology and use it, typically partially. They will not solve the problems, they will achieve some results, but not that what is needed. Due to that lean thinking is embedded in my DNA, my studies in applied psychology and neuroscience, and my relentless practical approach, everything started to come together around 2016. IT management, IT development, I started as a software developer, down to earth and practical applied psychology, practical applied neuroscience, and experience in countless IT projects, it all came suddenly together. And it became very clear that you can see a distinct red line in successful projects, namely when the management around the teams stepped aside, or, said it in another way, are out of the way. Those projects thrived and consistently succeeded. Okay, that probably sounds logical, right? When management steps aside, teams excel. If you're a manager, This statement is quite a challenge. I'm aware of that. Talking about management, we have heard a lot about servant leadership over the past decades, and you have probably already done some training to become a servant leader, and maybe you have made serious attempts. But yeah, when the projects start to slip again due to scope creep, delivery date creep, and budget creep, you have no choice but to intervene, right? And so, against your will, you revert to be a manager who pushes and pulls at teams to get things between brackets under control again. Going back to implementing KPIs. Oh, and let's not forget, we are going data driven because data driven is the silver bullet to get control, right? And of course, the product owners and the scrum masters, if you're working agile, are extra motivated and supported, put under pressure to meet the deadlines. Usually, you achieve the opposite of getting your project under control again. And so, when you apply more control, the sand slips through your fingers. We lose even more control, and the problems, they don't get any smaller. I'm a super pragmatist. If something doesn't work, I just stop doing it. Even if the underlying theory is good and between brackets is proven. Over the decades, I've used various methods and techniques that were popular at that time. And again, after a while, usually after a year or 1.5 years, I stopped using them. Simply because they didn't work. Man, I've been criticized and faced resistance from true believers of that fashionable method of that time, but I couldn't do otherwise because it just didn't work. Problems of scope creep, delivery date creep, and budget creep still needed to be resolved. Around 2016, something happened that led me to the final solution. At least it worked for me like that, and for the companies who started to use it too. The hybrid agile framework have. It all started with lean and pragmatic thinking, collecting small microprocesses that solve certain problems in a way of working used. This is derived from the lean and pragmatic idea: why invent something again if another team has already found a good solution for it? And in total, I've collected around 26 microprocesses, which are further optimized and are now loaded in an online library. Later, I realized that when teams used these processes, they quickly became high-performance teams, and I discovered in average within 3 months. And mature teams, they use it as a benchmark and refine their processes, taking another significant step forward. When I brought it online in 2021, I needed a name, and the name Scrum Quick Start SQS was born. Again, later, I discovered that 3 processes in SQS made it possible to combine waterfall and agile ways of working in one super simple and super efficient manner. The obvious name for these 3 processes was the Hybrid Agile Framework, HAVE. Suddenly I had, quite unexpectedly, documented and further developed these ways of working to operate a project in waterfall, agile, or a mixture of waterfall and agile in one way of working. This can be done across all teams in a project, but hybrid working is also possible within one team. But one problem was still blocking the way forward: the management around the teams. Management that wanted to do more exercises because they resolved to do so on New Year's Eve. Translated to the context of this podcast, becoming more of a servant leader. But they felt compelled, instinctively, to take more control by implementing command and control processes. Because, yeah, well, we have no choice. Otherwise, things goes wrong, right? Time and again, I encountered the management. Management that demanded the agile way of working from the teams, but they didn't practice it themselves. Because, yeah, that doesn't apply to us. But why not? How can you teach your child to sail if you never sailed yourself? How can you be a living example then? How can you guide your child from your experience? Also known by the saying, walk your talk, and I've been there. The Native Americans call this difference between saying something and doing something speaking with a forked tongue. You say I do agile, but you don't. So nothing changes, only the words used and some processes. But fundamentally, only little or no changes. Moreover, by demanding your teams to work agile while you, as part of the management around the teams, continue to do what you always did, you only create more stress. More stress because team members become more disappointed. Another promise they don't keep is a common complaint from team members I hear. Or, okay, we will write it out and we'll change again in a while. And management around these teams thinks they really do more exercises or act more as servant leaders in this context. Team members are disappointed and the management members feel wronged because they truly believe that they are making steps. And I regret to say, no. No real steps are being made when you are not the living example and you do not walk your talk. If parents don't show by example, by behavior, the children won't follow. This can be copied one-on-one to management and teams. But how do you do this? Stepping aside, becoming a true servant leader. And actually, servant leader, it is not the leader you need. What is needed is a so-called mentor leader. What is the difference? A mentor leader steps forward when needed, takes more the lead when needed. A mentor leader can perceive when it is time to step aside again and transform into a servant leader again. I call this swinging teams towards maturity. A step forward when needed, a step back when it is possible again. When I discovered that the SQS helps teams and half makes it possible to work hybrid agile, I also realized that I have developed a course years ago that, through super pragmatic and simple to execute assignments, support people in becoming a true mentor leader. I realized that this course, the Team Creator course, TCC, helps develop that aspect in people. For example, for Scrum Masters, for product owners, and of course for the managers around the teams. Finally, how can you ensure that the management around the teams truly experience what it is like to work hybrid agile? So that they can speak from I walk my talk and from I've been there. For this, I developed the Fast Implementation Path, FIP. The Fast Implementation Path is an excellent example of mentor leadership. It clearly shows how management can genuinely experience what it is like to work hybrid agile and how they gain the experience to become a true mentor leader from I've been there. So, after a maximum of 6 months, you can support your teams to become true elite teams from mentor leadership. Now, this seems to be a podcast about my products and services. Yes, they exist, but this podcast is primarily to show that there are simple to understand solutions for the critical areas in IT projects and non-IT projects. The credo is cut the crap, excuse me for the expression, but it fits so well. And as a result of that, there is no escape. You will find easy to understand and therefore easy to use solutions, and therefore they will always show results. That is inevitable. In the Elite Agile podcast, I share all these topics, my experience, my theoretical background knowledge, and last but not least, how you can apply it so that your teams also can be lean delivery machines, so that your projects inevitably stay within scope, within delivery date, and therefore within budget. In other words, your projects are becoming a smashing success. Projects that maximize your organization's contribution, making stakeholders and customer truly super enthusiastic. Proof that a hybrid agile framework half works can be found in the so-called follow-up videos. In these videos, I take you as briefly as possible through the background of why it works and how it works. Also, I will introduce to you the underlying root cause behind all root causes and how to address it. I also introduced the 3 core processes that allow you to combine waterfall and agile in any combination within and across teams. So check out these follow-up videos at elite-agile.nl. I hope you have become now an idea of why I started the Elite Agile podcast series. It fits my mission to provide teams clusters, departments, organizations with simple and effective solutions so that they too can become elite teams. I hope to meet you in the next podcast where I will delve deeper into the topics touched on in this podcast. Stay tuned. We hope you have found today's episode insightful and packed with actionable tips to tackle scope creep, budget overruns and delivery delays. Remember, the Hybrid Agile framework is here to support your project to turn them into a high-quality delivery machine. Stay connected with us for more expert in-depth info, success stories and practical strategies. If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe or rate or leave a review. Until next time, keep your projects on track and within budget with Half.